Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of CaCo Talks. Tonight we're talking all things Black history, Black appreciation, as we get ready to gear up for Black History Month. Join us in this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back to CaCo Talks. First we want to say happy Black History Month. We're glad that, first off, we made it around to another year, but also that we're able to celebrate Black achievements, Black excellence, Black contributions to the United States of America, Black health, Black wealth, Black art, Black everything. We're just, that's what we're going to do for the month of February. And we're glad to definitely be doing an episode here with you guys to discuss. But the first thing we actually did want to discuss, because Caitlin and I had a discussion about this just privately, is like whether to call this
seat.
What do you say?
I said, I'm in the hot seat.
You did spark, a little controversy because you said that you would prefer to call it appreciation versus history.
Yeah.
And we really,
because I feel like Black.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just feel like Black history is all year long. Like, to just put it into a box of 1 month, and the shortest month of all, is just absurd to me. So I think a Black appreciation, personally, should be all year round, and it should not be limited to just the history in 1 month. Because there's even some things that we don't talk about in Black history, but it's usually the same things that we're talking about every year in Black history that they deemed is they, as in America, has deemed important, right? But there's so many other things that are important, and that should be appreciated, even that may not be, even though it may not be historically significant, or it may not be something that you deem as worthy to talk about, but it's important and it affects how we move today as African Americans. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I definitely, I like the idea of it being appreciation, like you said, because I do feel like the history makes it feel kind of like medicinal, like medicine. Like, you gotta know that so-and-so, like Martin Luther King did this, or Malcolm X did this. Or, we always say Ida B. Wells or like Madam C.J. Walker. It's like there's like 4 or 5, or there's like a group of influential historical Black figures that they just recite every year as history. And it feels like this, I hate to say it, but it feels like this sort of like book report you got to do, which, everybody hates like getting up in front of class and being like, here's so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so,
Yeah. And it's like you're just like reciting what we already know, because nothing changes from year to year. It's the same old people, the same history lesson. And there's so many other contributions to the history of Black people besides the 5 people that they choose to put in their little textbook that fits their narrative, right?
And
so also,
it doesn't show the breadth of how much Black Americans have contributed to this nation. It's not just the few excellent ones that you see in a book. It's, your neighbor or your neighbor's family who's contributed to, the economic growth of this town, as well as maybe even some social organizations in the town, or like, It's like, that's why I think the word appreciation helps you get a holistic view. You know what I mean?
So, like, I guess in your world, would you call it Black history or Black appreciation?
I would call it I like the term Black appreciation now, because I just think that term shows what we should actually be doing during the month. Appreciating, celebrating, honoring, and honestly bringing, illuminating, highlighting contributions that Black Americans have made and continue to make and will continue to make to this nation.
Yeah, okay. Because I
History
think even
is
like,
like reciting like
yeah,
facts, which isn't
yeah.
necessarily
And I
being
think,
critical,
yeah. I think also too that like with history it limits you to things that have only happened in the past, and there's still people that are currently active in that today, right?
Exactly.
So like I feel like there should be Black appreciation for I'm trying to think of someone that I would actually appreciate today, but we'll say like Beyonce for the culture. Like we can
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that from her art.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I agree 100%. I think it would actually be better if they even turned to Black Appreciation Month, because you can appreciate historical figures as well as current day figures, but just saying history is like, it's something about Black History Month does feel white, because it's like, or serving to white people, because it's like, okay, we're going to take this time to kind of superficially just
Give this to you.
recite facts about Black people we have oppressed in the past and who overcame our oppression, basically,
And
and
I think I
excelled
also
in
think
our
that
eyes.
too.
You know?
True, true. I think also that it's his story, you know what I mean? Like it's the narrative that they want you to know.
Yes,
Right? Like these
exactly.
people are in the eyes of Black History Month, these are like the exception, but it's like all the rest of them have sat back and just accepted what is, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's many more people that were revolutionary to the cause of like advocating for African Americans, right? So it's like so much more than just like recounting what happened in the past, you know? I feel like part of it is also too like I feel like I guess appreciating the different contributions to Black history, I guess, if you will, it would cause some questioning, maybe some uprisings, and some cause for changes, you know?
Exactly. I just think appreciation makes you look at your own behavior as a part of this, not just reciting or regurgitating facts. It's like everyone feels like they're removed from history, right? Because it's like history is not the present, it's the past. And especially when you
Yeah.
don't feel like you are responsible for the history, even if it's a negative history, you know?
Yeah.
So
And
it's easier
yeah.
to remove yourself, I think, versus appreciating as an active word. You have to actively be a part of celebrating. You have to be a part of remembering. You have to be a part of highlighting and bringing to light those groups or people, Black people, who are marginalized, you know? So history, I think, is a way that white people have been able to, or white culture, I'll say, American culture has been able to throw a bone, but not really invest in actively doing the work to
It's very
celebrate.
dismissive in
Or,
my personal opinion.
yes, I mean, just the term history does feel dismissive and, like I said, somewhat medicinal, you know? So I think the term, changing it to appreciation and really making it about that would be great, you know? But, you know, I don't know. We live in a society built on, honestly, white supremacy and white, you know, and capitalism and all of it, all of that. And I just think that it's very difficult to get people to understand somebody else's perspective when they are in a position of privilege.
For sure. 100%.
You know? And so I don't know. Systemic racism is probably always going to affect our lives.
Unfortunately.
And, you know, I think if they really want to do some Black history or they want to show some appreciation, they would really do the work to get rid of systemic racism. But that
Let's
people
not
would
hold
look.
our breath.
Yeah. But that would require, well, it wouldn't even mean that they were giving up privilege, actually. It would just mean that they are allocating resources to make sure that people who are disadvantaged actually have an opportunity, similar opportunities. But
so I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that Black history or Black appreciation should be a month or should it be all year?
Well, I think it definitely needs to be all year, and we need to celebrate Black people, Black accomplishments at all
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
I think having a designated time where it's sort of like, I don't want to say forced, but it is a constructed time for people to specifically remember. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I do think that we organize our lives around, honestly, benchmarks and holidays in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, and specific celebrations. So I think designating a time where the average person is probably not going to ever think about it is probably important for the average person. Now, people who are like, who try to like obviously support Black owned businesses and do like all that stuff all the time, and there are definitely people who do that all the time, I think then the month feels kind of like too little too late, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
for people who, and we're talking about the average person in America, people who don't have that um, ability or don't know, I guess, the month is a good like benchmark, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I guess both. What do you think?
I personally think it should just be all year long. However, like you said, when you made your point about like keeping it a month because we're so holiday oriented in America,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that I that makes sense. But I do think that it should be more in, if it was more intertwined into our daily, education, or like teaching our children, or education system, textbooks and whatnot. I think it would be easier to integrate it into something that we do daily, or like all year round. But conveniently, that's not the case. We're constricted to kind of like a month, and a select few people. So, but I
Exactly.
would root for. I would always root for all year round, because there's way more contribution. I mean, even the things that we learn about in like textbooks now, like white people did or created. Um, that I mean, a lot of black people truly created it if you really did the research. So it's like there's just way more to offer than what you can get in I think 28 days.
I agree, absolutely. I agree with that. First and foremost is like 28 days is like not enough, but I don't know. I don't know why I'm thinking about the average person, but I do think the average person is less aware, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So you think African Americans are less aware too?
No, I don't think average African Americans are less aware, but I think this holiday was created honestly for white Americans mostly in
See?
some ways. Well, I mean, I think it's like benefits. I mean, okay. Well, what I'm saying is, I think the construct of the time, the holiday, is something that white Americans need, because they dismiss Black people in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like,
So it's
Black
like
people,
this
we
whole
are
thing like
always
makes you shush.
appreciate. Yeah, like Black people, we're always appreciating ourselves and each other all the time, 365 days a year. But for the average white person, they don't. If they don't have an immediate connection or relationship with a person of color or a Black person, they are never considering a Black person ever,
Yeah.
unless they come into contact. And usually, they come into contact with them superficially at like work or in possibly social circles. But even then, a lot of times they don't have deep, intimate connections with Black people or people of color. They really don't.
That's true.
And so I think etching out a time for them is almost necessary, or it wouldn't exist
Mm-hmm.
at all, because they would just dismiss
Yeah.
everything.
But do you, I mean, I like, to me, it's like not about, like, I understand why, I guess it's something for white people to celebrate. But like,
Mm-hmm.
my emphasis would not be on white people to celebrate that, because they don't
Yeah, I
understand
agree.
the they don't understand blackness by many means, and that's not. And the ones that are interested in learning, they truly are interested in learning. Like, you know what I mean? So, and like you said earlier, the true issue here is systemic racism and this superior attitude towards race, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so when you're fixing that, then you wouldn't even have to worry about a month to appease the white people if that was the case.
I agree
First of all,
with
if
that.
you were telling the truth, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. I'm with you on the all year around and like the people who get it. Those who get it. Those who don't.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you. I'm just saying that the average person is a don't.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying,
What a cop
not
out.
that we have to care so much, I guess, with the average person. Because if it's up to me, like I said, yeah, then we would be just all year round. Like, we'd be doing all kinds of things all year round. It wouldn't even be just Black appreciation. It'd be like Indigenous people appreciation, Latino, like, you know what I mean? Trans people, like all types of people would be appreciated all year round because I don't have those sorts of biases. But I also don't, I'm the least likely to benefit from this system.
Yeah.
Because I'm Black and a woman and I'm not wealthy yet. but you know, I'm like the least likely to benefit. So for me, I do see the beauty in all types of people. I see how people fight to survive, or I'm more aware of marginalized groups fighting to survive because I am a marginalized person, you know. But for the vast majority who do not and are not critical thinkers and who do have a level of privilege, they live their lives quite literally dismissing and ignoring the fact that other people are struggling.
Yeah.
And so I think for them, almost like I said, constructing this holiday, I don't want to say forcing, it's not really forcing them anything, but constructing this holiday where they have to at least pay attention slightly is like, at least there's a constructed opening. And I'm not
they're paying attention?
That's right. I don't think they're always even paying attention because it's person to person. But I think you can potentially catch more attention. It's kind of like, okay, it's like these billboards that I see outside. Okay, maybe not everybody's going to see this movie, but you at least saw the billboard. Yeah. And you might change your mind because of it. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like and they put it there specifically for the potential that someone might be enticed to see it. You know what I mean? And not that Black History Month is an enticing thing, but it's like, at least it's constructed where we are going to discuss the contribution to this country from people of color. And maybe you are a racist, John, but you know what? You're going to hear about Madam C.J. Walker, or you're going to hear about Oprah or whoever. And you can, just like everyday people have to put their feelings, thoughts, and whatever aside for you, today, that's what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that I think is, I don't think that's always the best way, but I think that's like how progress usually works in America. Is very slow and not really, and kind of clunky and not really exactly effective, but that's how they do things. I'm not advocating for that, but I just think that's the logic behind it, I think.
That's unfortunate, huh?
I mean, it is unfortunate because obviously we like to just rip the Band-Aid off and just be like, you know, but no, I guess what I'll say is what I can't stand is people who pick and choose. Well, I've always experienced this with men, white men or white identifying men, but who pick and choose their advocacy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've experienced that too. Is like people who who decide like, now I'm going to appreciate Blackness today. And it's usually like hitting on you, but they like pick and choose advocacy. You know what I mean?
So what do you mean? Like they're choosing because they are interested in Black women?
Or they happen to be interested in the Black woman standing in front of them. Not that they're interested in Black women in general, but interested in the Black woman standing in front of them. So they pick and choose advocacy, like, oh, I'm down for the cause, or I'm XYZ, or I understand the plight of. You don't
Yeah.
understand the plight. You want to sleep with this woman. Like, you know what I'm saying?
But I mean, I do think that like that is also hard to know because you're not in.
You don't think? I think it's easy to know.
I think it's like I don't know what's going. Like, do I think typically the what I venture to say typically that's probably the case, sure. But I think at the same time too, like you don't fully know until like I feel like I have to see some action behind like what you're saying to be like, oh no, that's a lie. Like just based off what you're saying, I'm like, okay, like I probably think you're a piece of ish, but like you may really be down for the cause.
I mean, maybe they are down for the cause, but well, I guess what I always say is like people who are down for the cause tend to have more of an intellectual way of speaking about it. People who speak about it in broad terms, like, oh yeah, just Black Lives Matter, or I'm gonna have to learn how to speak
Yeah.
AAVE just to speak to you. That's broad strokes that are not actual critical conversations. So there's a good chance you're not invested in the cause. You're trying to invest in this person, which is two different things.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Which is they try to mask it as appreciation, and it's not. It's a pickup line, or it's just a line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the woke line to say. It doesn't have to be on just
Yeah, I
like
guess it's just like the socially acceptable thing of that you should say.
Yeah,
you know?
because nobody wants to be a racist. It's not cool to be a racist. Very much not cool to be a racist.
It's not cool, but that'd be the thing. There'd be so many of them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, so people try to paint themselves out to not be racist or not have these traditional values, and then I don't want to call it traditional, just bigoted values. And then they end up actually speaking to somebody who either has lived that experience, has lived a marginalized experience, or is critically aware of what a marginalized experience is, and then they can't really keep up. So they just use these broad strokes of things to say.
Mm-hmm.
You never experienced this?
I don't think I have, honestly.
You never had some white person come up to you and say some like stereotypical stuff and be like, I'm down for the cause?
I don't think so.
I have.
No, I don't think so.
It would happen. Honestly, it would happen all the time at college.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but at my college, it was like we had a lot of like false preachers and prophets who felt like they had the calling, and so they were like, "God forbid you catch them doing something like that. It would have been a scandal." So like, no.
Yeah, you're right. I guess you did go to a Christian school, so it's probably different.
Yeah,
ours was like fake liberal. Well, I don't say fake liberals. It was like either you're deeply conservative or you're kind of like performatively liberal.
Yeah, and I was gonna say at your school, because there was like people who like really thought that like I feel like genuinely thought black people were like beneath them because of like money and stuff like that. Like that makes more sense versus like at CSU, it was. I mean, we were all struggling, baby. Like, let's be honest, we were all struggling. Obviously it was a private school, but like, we were all in the same boat, and then it was like ungodly for you to do such a thing. Like, we treat all people the same, and we're all equal and stuff like that. So, like, if you dare got caught saying something like that, that and like anything sexual was probably the worst two things you probably could have did on campus. Now, am I sure that racist behaviors existed on campus? Absolutely, but for you to do it outright, I feel like you would have been heavily condemned. Honestly.
Yeah, they condemn people after the fact for us. It was like somebody said something deeply racist and they act so shocked, like, we don't condone this. Like,
be proactive.
Like, if you don't condone it, why is this happening every 3 to 6 business months? You got somebody else is saying the N-word to the RA, or somebody else is like found, doing some racist stuff. And it's like, if you don't condone it, why are you letting people in who do this?
Honestly, for real.
And they got to send out like public apologies and do this whole like, honestly, in my opinion, it's kind of a dog and pony show of like clean up our mess,
Yeah. And then very reactive behavior.
Yeah, instead of preventing on the front end, like y'all can't do some screenings up front. Well, they would lose money if they did screenings.
Yeah, true. Because
Because
Jim
what I'm
Bob
saying,
and Nancy's daughter Bethany not being nice.
right? Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, I'm down for appreciation all year around, all the time. I just think for the average person, the month at least is like, okay, we're at least going to designate this month. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
see, I feel like that's just like that's not enough. Like you giving us the bare minimum is not enough. Like
I agree. It
you
isn't enough.
give, you know, and so I think also too that like this month is very like looked over in the white world, and
Yeah.
so it's like
They're trying to capitalize off it now, which is bizarre to me. Like, they did
yeah
not used to do this. I'm like, Target, I don't know if your targets do this, but our targets here be very much, even in January, I'm like, they got this whole like Black Lives Matter, support Black excellence, Black magic, this whole section. I'm like, they were like trying to sell clothes, trying to
yeah they
sell
have
like
that at ours too.
banners. Like, Target was like, y'all not about to get us this year, period. You know?
Yeah, no, we have like a little. It's like a little tiny section. It's not very big now, and they have like a little kiosk, and it has like some black stuff, like black creators made it. Which I feel
Mhm.
like that is the difference between Black history and Black appreciation, because
Yeah.
what they're doing in this case, I think, is they're honoring Black artists
Hmm.
and Black creativity and giving them a platform to get their stuff out there, right? So that's kind of why it's like Black appreciation. That's like another reason why, you know. Versus if it was Black history, all you would see is MLK,
Well, they wouldn't
and
even
some
put stuff in stores.
oh, that too, you know. And so I think like that is why I'm okay with Target doing what they've done. Is because
Hmm.
it lends it's like exposure for other Black artists and creators and um, you know, writers, authors, and all those cool things.
Yeah, I agree
So,
with that. I think
but do
Target
I
is
think?
doing it better. I think they're doing obviously better than Walmart, which is like, I hate to say
Oh,
it, but Target is usually always better than Walmart. But
honestly,
but
honestly,
but I mean, at the end of the day, Target does stand to benefit from it
no,
capitalistically.
for sure, for
You
sure.
know, so
Yeah, but I
yes,
mean, I
I do
think like
appreciate.
even the Black creator stands to benefit from it, right?
Yeah, I
From
agree
Black
with that too.
appreciation, period.
I agree. I don't think it's totally. I think the fact Target's doing the best they can with the system that they exist
Yeah,
in, which is capitalism. And I
yeah,
think they are trying to put out, I noticed that they do put out like black, like creators, people who I had never heard of who have been like designing things and making, you know what I mean? So I was like, that I think is really a good move because they at
hmm
least put some ethical thought into, okay, if we're going to put black things out there, we're not just slapping like, you know,
hmm
I don't know, lift every voice on stuff and then selling it from our brand. We're at least putting it for we're giving black people a time to shine. And capitalistically, we're giving them a cut of the money that is going to be generated from
yeah,
this.
exactly. And that's
And
why I
so
think that like
that's more appreciation.
Target is doing it. Yeah, and that's why like I said, that is why it's appreciation from Target versus like Walmart. They're just, you know, like they
I'm
make
already
that sweet
slap
ice cream that
something
one
on
time.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, like just like slap Black history on what they already have and be like, oh, this is, or like they'll go and make something that's like doesn't even represent real Black culture, like that ice cream that Walmart made that a while ago, like a couple years
Hmm.
ago. Like, what in the world are you doing? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
ugh, Jesus, that very distasteful. Um, but like, if you're gonna do it right, please.
I
Thank you.
agree.
I'd appreciate it.
I think the best thing, like you said, appreciation. If you come at it from appreciation angle instead of just like, if you come at it from appreciation versus history again is that kind of just slapping something together or just reciting something or like it feels
Hmm.
obligatory. But
Yeah,
appreciation is like, how do we actually show people that we are um, uplifting their work, their voices, their,
facts.
you know what
And
I
I feel
mean?
like history really is like what you deem is no like word telling versus really telling the true history, like the true story of it. And
Hmm.
when you are, I feel like when you are appreciating something, you tell whatever you are telling or trying to get across in its entirety, because you're trying to appreciate the full extent of what you are, whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Um, just kind of like Target. Target is putting um, Black creators in this space to be able to profit from that space while also getting a cut for having a deal with Target. Hopefully it's a
Exactly.
fair cut, but
And
they're
maybe they
also
can grow
getting
into
something
other
out of it.
relationships too, like
Yeah,
with other retailers. That would be good.
exactly. hmm
So
And
that's,
so that's like a good platform.
it's like, yeah, it's like giving an opportunity versus just trying to exploit,
Exactly.
which I can get with that. I'm all about giving opportunities outlast, obviously, than just a momentary kind of fix, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think Target, I don't have an issue with Target, especially because they work with like Tabitha Brown, who's like
Yes, we
getting a
love
really great
Tab.
shine, and as she deserves. And her stuff I see in Target, I'm like, this is so cute. This is adorable. I
It
love
is.
it.
Have you tried
And
her vegan food?
no, I know she had vegan
It's actually
food.
really good. Yeah, she had like released like a vegan food line in Target. It's actually
I'm
really
like,
good.
dang, she really went from being like, hello there, to like
Right.
the whole
She
ass
also, I don't know if
man
you
in
know,
Target and
she
books
also
and
has
like, doesn't she have clothes
she
and
also
candles or something?
Mom says she has clothes, but I've never seen it. Mom also, like, she has her little kitchen stuff in Target, but she
Yeah.
also has a hair care line in Ulta.
I'm like, see, this is what happens when you let black women really do their thing. They're gonna just,
Right?
I'm like, they're gonna make more money for you. Like, they're really gonna
Honestly.
go out and make this stuff happen.
hmm
Like, this is why
Like
black women
Tabitha, like
really
I love
shine.
everything about Tabitha. I'm like her personality and like just who she is as a person to die for. Like literally.
Yeah.
Like who wouldn't want to be around that? Even white people
She's
want to
got
be
such a
around it.
I know that's what I'm saying. She's got like that Oprah thing, like warm auntie,
Yeah,
black auntie energy, which white
very
people
true.
can say what they want. I think they really deeply crave black women for that like auntie vibe that a lot of us have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see
That
that.
kind of like I hate to say it, it feels sort of derived from like Mammy type figure, even though Mammy's kind of
Mm,
problematic. But I think it's like it's derived from that like the idea that black women are eternally understanding, nurturing, kind, always willing to like help you when you fall, always there to kind of I don't want to say pick up the pieces, but always there to soothe things. Like black women are like
mhm,
soothers. And I think you can get into the problematics of that because a lot of times people will just come and dump stuff on black women and be like, fix it, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true.
that can be problematic. But I think that's what Tabitha Brown represents for white people because they see her as this sort of like auntie maternal figure that a lot of that stereotypically white women do not necessarily exude.
hmm hmm That's
Like
fair.
stereotypically, you know,
I can. And I agree with you in that they definitely do like flock um,
black
to
women
African
for those,
Americans because
yeah,
they have that more like that oomph, if you will, that like pizzazz that like maybe missing in the stereotypical white woman.
yeah,
um, and that's not saying that they can't have it, but
yeah,
they're very like mediocre
yeah.
in some in certain
Well, I think
instances.
white women tend to be more like associated with being calculated and cold
You
and
think
sort of
so?
distant. I think so. Because like when
Hmm.
you think about like this like sneaky kind, like we were just talking about the office lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's somebody who you consider kind of cold, calculated, less warmth. Not somebody you would go to with a problem and expect some sort of kindness to come out of
True.
that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's fair. That's fair.
Like I
So,
know there's
but I feel
something
like the reason why I say I don't know is because like I'm a black woman, so obviously my perception of that is going to always be very
different. Yeah,
different because I perceive it from a black person point of view, and half the time they don't want to be around me. So
or that's what you think. I think they'd be too scared to say something.
I think it's more
I'll
of
say
like
I know
envy.
that. Yeah, I agree. I think some of it is envy too.
I
I think
watched a
that
thing on
envy,
TikTok the other day, and it was a white woman. She was a teacher, and there was a black woman that was her like coworker, right? And
mhm,
the black woman was just excelling at doing her job. Like she was having really good test rate. She was having really good like response, I guess like stats with the students that she was teaching.
mhm,
And the white lady wasn't. And so she was saying that like in that moment she learned like she was just wondering why she felt some type of way about it. And so she started doing research on like what that means and why, and like internally, and also reading. And she was saying that it was like this bias towards Black women because they were, she was basically taught that they should be less than white women. And so she was saying that she had like an inherent bias towards Black women because she is white and a Black woman should always be beneath her. But from like working on herself and getting rid of that, like implicit bias and the internal racism that she didn't think that she even had, that she found out she did have, had like sparked her to realize like all people are on an equal playing field, and they should be. So,
and like I agree with you because I don't know, I felt that in different spaces too. Is like this person has an issue with me, and I've never done anything whatever to this person. But a lot of times, but like you said, I think sometimes it's just like people don't like that other people like you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or
that other
that's
people
always the case.
See you like shining or whatever, and then like they may or may not have it, whatever that thing is. Which it seems in that teacher's case seems to be classroom management, charisma, a rapport with the students, really good teaching styles. And it's like, those are things that obviously she's recognizing she lacks. Which means, truthfully, you just think that because a Black woman is doing these things that you aren't, that like, or you think a Black woman shouldn't be able to do those things. That's what she thought.
Yeah.
And that her, truthfully, it seems, I saw that video too. I was like, truthfully, it seems like she's just more mediocre, just like an average teacher. And it seems like you can't understand why your mediocre is not excelling. Like your mediocre should always be her excel because you're white, which is a racist belief,
Yeah.
But that stuff has real effects because sometimes that lady she was gracious enough to do the inner work on herself. A lot of people don't.
For sure.
And so you end up being bullied out of jobs, or you end up not getting certain promotions, or you end up not, end up being ostracized or whatever because some white person really genuinely feels like their mediocrity should always trump your excellence. That stuff has real effects for people. It's not just some get over it type thing. It has real effects. And because depending on how, it's at the whims of that person, that jealous individual, they can go out of their way to make life hell for you because they just don't want to see you succeed.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because they feel like you shouldn't succeed in the first place because you're Black.
You shouldn't be, or you shouldn't even be like a thought of like competition. Like you're just so far beneath them that it shouldn't even be a thought. So.
Exactly. And it's because they just really genuinely, first off, those type of people usually don't know Black people intimately. And usually they've never seen Black people succeed, right? So they're like,
very true.
Idea of Blackness exists as people who are just inherently beneath them because they have never seen actual real Black people in real life. You know what I mean? Or no, they've never seen Black people in real life. They exist in the same spaces that they do. And that's something that I feel like on some level we both have experienced. When you go to these jobs, it's like some white people are genuinely shocked that you were like college educated and able to like exist in the same space that they do. Seriously.
Yeah. Even if you're not college educated or like,
even if you're not college
they aren't and you are, like, it's just like, it's a mess.
They really are quite literally like, you're here. Like, you know what I mean? So, and that stuff you run into, that stuff you run into like all the time. And usually the people who come and say that stuff to you be the ones who are not educated or who don't have the skills. It don't usually be the ones who are on par with you. You know what I mean? So, that's just those are the ones who end up questioning more. But that stuff has real effects. And that's, sorry, to bring this back to Black appreciation. That's why it is important that we do the work to appreciate regularly. We see Black people in different spaces. We see Black people achieving. We see Black people not just as this like distant monolith that we aren't connected with, that you aren't connected with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting for sure.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to say about appreciation versus history?
No, I think I've been on my high horse enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good discussion. I think we definitely said some things that like definitely needed to be shared. So, but speaking of appreciation, we did want to share an interesting figure from the past that I do think should be appreciated. And I recently just learned about this, and I think it would be good for us to know. Is about a woman named Bridget Biddy Mason. She was born enslaved. I don't think they have an official date for when she was born, but she was born enslaved in Georgia, and she was eventually purchased, I want to say, by somebody in Texas, by a man in Texas, Robert and Rebecca Smith, who were slave holders. It's also rumored that her daughters were actually, the children that she had were actually fathered by her master, Robert Smith. Not uncommon. But when her masters, Robert and Rebecca, were converted to Mormonism in like the late 1800s, they migrated to Utah, which I didn't know that Utah was so Mormon, like has been Mormon that long. I don't know why I thought they just like suddenly had the FLDS there. But they've been Mormon for a long time.
Girl.
They've been, I mean, since the
late to the cause, yeah.
That's where the Mormons like were. That was like their Zion promised land was Utah.
Yeah, but they've always been there though.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. I thought the FLDS was like, 90s at best. But anyways.
Nah, so I mean, a lot of them darn children and stuff they got, they heavy. They do.
Like, it was there for almost 100 years, 100 plus years. But
heavy on the children,
right? So but yeah, so the Smiths, they migrated with their family, including Biddy Mason, and her children to Utah. So from Texas to Utah, they had the enslaved woman Biddy walking 2,000 miles from Texas to Utah, and then from Utah to California. She walked like the entire way, caring for the family, caring for her kids, basically being enslaved to the Smith family. Which I don't know if y'all been through Texas, California. That is not an easy journey. That is not an easy journey, even by vehicle. Okay. So I can't imagine walking across mountains and plains and snow and ice and desert and God knows what. But she did, which is a feat in and of itself. But so they eventually moved to California with the Utah group. They moved to San Bernardino, California, which is actually very close to Los Angeles. Very close. And at the time, if you know your history, California was a free state. So California was annexed into the American Union in like 1850, with the Compromise of 1850, I think, as a free state. So you could not hold slaves in California legally. So, but they lived in California. Biddy lived with Robert and Rebecca Smith as Mormons in California for like 5 years before she was even made aware of her status as a free woman. She was free when she crossed the state lines, but she lived here for 5 years not knowing she was free.
So what did she do like in that time?
She continued to work for their family. She continued to be enslaved to their family and work for their family. Which is like evil. Because they were illegally holding slaves. That family was illegally holding slaves in the state of California. And so when the Smith family was like, we're going to go back to Texas, they were trying to take Mason and her family back to Texas. But Biddy had already like become acquainted with some free Black people who were in California. And they were like, no, you need to sue for your freedom. And so she sued for her freedom. And a judge named Judge Benjamin Hayes granted her freedom because the master did not actually show up to court. So He just granted her freedom, like right then and there, and she was free.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's considered one of the first enslaved people to successfully sue for their freedom. Granted, it was a big help that she was in California because that was a free state where there were never, where it was illegal to hold slaves anyway. So like her master and I guess mistress would have been in, you know, legal trouble for holding slaves. But yeah, so
did he get
Mason
caught, or
what'd you say?
did the slave owner get caught?
I guess he just went back to Texas. I think he was. They just granted her freedom, and we're just like, well, if you're the last of his slaves, and we're freeing you, and they legally cannot take you back. So I'm sure they just probably left because they would have been trying to fight for slaves, you know. And so yeah, so she didn't want to go back south with her master. She sued for her freedom. She sued for her children's freedom as well, and they were made free forever by the judge in California in San Bernardino, Los Angeles area. And so, and keep in mind, this is not the LA we obviously know now. This was like LA was like a Western town just on the coast, very like just a Western town, basically, you know, like any other Western town. And so then Mason, she becomes a doctor's assistant. She started running midwife businesses. She saved up a lot of money and started purchasing. She purchased a home for herself, and then she started purchasing other real estate in the Los Angeles area and selling it to commercial businesses. So she became a real estate mogul. And by the end of her life, she had what would have been worth about $7 million in today's time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Definitely, I mean, she would be rich today, but like she was damn sure rich back then. And she basically established a homestead in what basically became downtown Los Angeles. So she used a lot of her wealth to do philanthropic things like to establish daycare centers for parents. She helped to fund the first African Methodist Episcopal church. She created accounts at stores for families who lost homes in flooding. That's wild to me that Los Angeles ever flooded. And she, so she became known as Grandma Mason and died in 1891. And there's a monument in downtown LA honoring her. She was like one of the first like real estate moguls, even in the Los Angeles area at all. Not even black, white, man, child, whatever. And then, you know, I mean, she was really doing what a lot of people do today, just buy up commercial property and resell it.
Right.
That's what she was doing. So, that's pretty crazy. I mean, not crazy. Obviously, I believe she could have definitely done that. But that just goes to show she went from an enslaved person to like total entrepreneur. Like, and this is what happens when you were given opportunity. It's lack of resources and structural racism that kept her out of a fortune. That was it. Other than that, she literally made a fortune. So, yeah.
So, like, did she have like kids and stuff? Like,
yeah, I think she had children. I think her children were by her master, Robert Smith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I think she got to keep her children as a part of, like, when she became freed, her children were also freed.
Got it.
Because they were in the state of California. So, but I wonder how many people illegally kept slaves in California.
Oh, I bet it was ridiculous.
Probably a lot, especially when it was like just kind of like a ghost town. Like, you know, they didn't know.
I feel like there wasn't like it's like information was not readily available like it is now.
I agree.
And so like unless you knew, you didn't know.
Yeah, that's why she didn't know for 5 years. She was here for 5 years and didn't know she was free. And she probably couldn't read.
Yeah.
Or write, or had never been taught to read or write. So like they really, by keeping information away from her, that's what made her still in servitude to them.
Yeah.
It took other enslaved or free black people in the area telling her that she is not a slave. You know? Which is wild to me. They really thought they could just circumvent the law and just be like, forget it. We're going to move to California. I don't care if it's a slave or not. We're going to hold slaves.
That's wild.
Which I can imagine so many white people did that. And nobody, I mean, and then it was as good as the judge, because the judge could have just been like a racist himself and been like, well, I don't have to grant you your freedom.
Well, the judge has to be
law.
like, he has to follow the court of law, like, or he should just go to the
Ideally,
Supreme
but
Court.
we also know judges be crooked.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
And he could have just easily been like, well, you're not a slave. You are indentured to them.
Mm-hmm.
If they wanted to get around it, they could have reworded it.
True.
But he was, I don't know. I mean, she really, I don't want to say she lucked up, but I feel like she kind of did. I mean, the fact that Utah probably was a slave state, and then they came to California, which was definitely not a slave state. You know,
Utah was a slave state?
I don't think it was. It might have been, but I don't know if it was. I know the Compromise of 18. There's a bunch of stuff, you know, like history, American history is like this state can be annexed as a slave state, but this one can't. It was like 1 for 1, which is like why? I don't know why they did that. Or like what the debate had to be about that, because I'd be like, we got to do a 1 for 1, slave not slave. So y'all really try to like halfway in, halfway out slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really interesting because, you know, Black women been holding it down since, you know, the late 1800s. Period.
Baddies.
Baddies. Right?
Always will be, always have been. Period.
Exactly. And I love the ingenuity of like, I'm gonna buy this property, resell it. Like,
which I wonder, like, did she see somebody doing that? Like, how does she get into that?
I don't know. I mean, because Los Angeles has been a booming city for a long time, you know? And then I'm sure lots of people there was the manifest destiny, right? So the idea of people just coming to the West. And then Los Angeles is a port city. So people are attracted to port cities, you know what I mean? So as people are coming and establishing businesses, like the commercial property goes very fast. Even today, the commercial property goes very, very fast because people are like, you'll see a business here like for like a year or so, and then next year it's gone. You know what I mean?
Facts. Yeah, same here.
And so I think at that time she really lucked up in the sense that Los Angeles was such a growing population of people. You know, I mean, obviously it's not the LA we think of now that now has the film industry and like so many other industries tied to it, but like that was like pre this time, so people were just coming out, you know. So she was really, honestly, she lucked up. I don't say lucked up, got her freedom. She deserved freedom, but you know, she, in some ways, it was like great. She got her freedom, and then she also lucked up in the fact she was in a booming market, probably for like commercial property, and that's how she became rich. You know,
Love that.
Love that. But yeah, so you want to discuss anything else about Black appreciation, like any Black history events? How will you be celebrating?
No, I probably won't be celebrating. Like, I really am not that person. I do have a question though. So I saw like an article about California. They're like in the process of, I guess, preparing to give out reparations for slavery, right?
They preparing for it?
I don't know. I just saw like a brief little article. I kept on scrolling because I was like, that to me, that's not going to solve the issue. But something about
like a task force for it, like I heard there was just like a task force for it.
Got it. Okay. Well, there's something in place with as far as reparations are being concerned, right? In California, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm all for it, 1,000%. I mean, I feel like Black Americans have really been robbed out of reparations. That is like the one group in America that has not received reparations for the absolute atrocity that was American chattel slavery.
Yeah,
and there's no denying that was an atrocity. I mean, people at the time were writing about how much of an atrocity it was. And then you have slave accounts. We've definitely seen how white Americans have benefited from the economic progress they were able to make through an institution like slavery. But obviously, we know if they're benefiting from it, then somebody is not benefiting from it, right? Which is the Black Americans and their descendants. And we still till this day see like where there's areas of like strict Black, where there's like concentrated blackness, those tend to be economically depressed areas, right?
Sure.
Versus white areas. So I'm all about reparations. I don't know how they want to go about doing it because I'm sure there's a lot to figure out just about logistics, but I'm all about it. And I think it's interesting that California wasn't even a slave state and they're the ones spearheading this,
Honestly.
because who really needs to really, really, really pay back is South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Period.
Good old South Carolina.
And I'm going to say, as a, like, I don't know if I'm considered a dual resident or whatever, but I want checks from both. That's what I'm saying.
All 3 of them, all 50 of them,
All
actually.
50 of
Run
them.
me my money.
My
Wherever my
money.
heritage was, I need to get paid for me, my grandma, my great-grandma,
Great-grandma.
great-grandma, removed, added back, twice added back, 5
Exactly.
times. Dang it. Because the way they have benefited from slavery don't make no goddamn sense.
Seriously. They
No
really
goddamn
have.
sense.
Or at the very least, they've benefited from Jim Crow and
Yeah.
legal segregation. Like they have benefited from the fact
From all
that
of it.
Black Americans have been kept out of certain spaces.
Yep.
Black Americans and Black women specifically have been kept out of certain spaces. And I don't think there's a white person on this planet who hasn't benefited in some way from that.
Mm-hmm.
There just really
I think
isn't.
also too, like outside of even that, all other, I guess like cultures, if you will, or maybe religious groups have received some sort of reparations.
Mm-hmm.
We're the only ones that have not. So
I think that's true. Well, I just think they refuse to acknowledge it as this great atrocity. Like in some ways, they will say like, "Oh, slavery was wrong; it was bad," but they will not acknowledge it the same way they would acknowledge something like the Holocaust or even Japanese internment, which is what they did after Pearl Harbor here in America. They will not acknowledge that the state was wrong. They will say, "Oh, well, it was like this moral thing."
Do you think it's because of like the sheer numbers of like?
I think part of it is the sheer number, and I think because of tracking families was they were tracking Black Americans as property, that lineage was intentionally disrupted for Black Americans, right? They did so as a form of oppression, but like, so it's hard to trace things back. Sometimes records get murky after a certain time period.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and so I
if y'all
think
don't read them slave journals,
right, and then also I think sometimes it's like, well, how much of a percentage of Blackness are you Black? Because truth is, a lot of white people have Black in them because of things like plantation rape. You know what I mean? So like,
and I think even in like in today's time, like the mixing of cultures and stuff, there's a lot of complicating factors, I guess, if you will. But I think there is also if you wanted to give reparations, there's a way to do it. And I just think they're genuinely not interested in it. And I'm not even that person that's like hugely supportive of reparations, especially in the African American culture. I think it would be helpful, but I think along with that needs to come some education.
I agree
on like how to use that, because I think it can get lost in. I think part of the reason why they would do it is also to go back in the economy, which would be the same thing they've been doing, right?
Yeah.
They pretty much exploit African Americans, and they'll be doing the same thing by handing us millions of dollars. So.
I also think the other thing too is some of it does feel a little too late. Like I think the best sustainable change they really can do is to work to end systemic racism and to give opportunities to marginalized groups. Like I think something that should definitely be done is at least, well, I think college should be free for everybody, but free college education for descendants of American chattel slavery. I think that is a really good thing to do. Obviously, proving, assuming you get into the actual college, not just like, you know what I mean? But like, I mean, but even that process is
reparations don't even have to be like you giving somebody $50,000. It could literally be like not having to pay for college, like setting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's what you gotta, you know, I think that kind of stuff could be useful because that's giving an opportunity to educate people, right? And then you do have a more educated workforce. All this goes back to capitalism. So I'm like,
but I think they want to keep certain people dumb because they need to keep the working class as working class.
I think so too. Well, I
In
think
order
they
for
have
the
the
rich to
issue
stay
about the
rich, you
white
have to
lash.
keep.
I wonder if they're more afraid of black people succeeding or if they're more afraid of white people lashing out. What do you think?
I think black people are succeeding because I think black people lashing out is going to look very different than a white person lashing out.
Yeah, but what we've seen of white people lashing out is they do mass shootings and shit.
It's true they do mass shootings, but like I feel like if African Americans really took over the world, it would be like, first of all, no but white person would be at top. Period.
Yeah,
like it wouldn't even be possible.
Yeah, I guess.
Like
I think
it
they're
not
afraid.
to the extent of like enslaving people, but it would be like reverse racism, I think. If
you think so,
which is not really a
I
thing.
think most
But
black people are more evolved than that.
I don't think
I
so.
think most black people are.
I don't think so, and the reason why I don't think so is because I feel like it's kind of how like we talk about this a lot of time. Like black men, right? They have this idea that like that someone has to take care of them because of like trauma and how they were raised, and it goes back generations, right? So that would become a thing in power.
Yeah.
And then you have
maybe
quote stereotypically it's like men are the only people that should be in power. So could you imagine hurt people in power? Like I could imagine. I don't know about that. I just don't know.
Well, what if we just do a 360 black women in charge?
Now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Because how many unruly black women, even public figures, do we really have?
Yeah, they're usually pretty but we had to be very poised and like
very
presentable. Because I'm telling you,
because I think about I hate to say this, but the average political leader, black man, I wouldn't put my life in his hands. But I would put my life in the hands of some of the political black women out there.
Oh, for sure.
I would. I definitely would.
Give me Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, for sure. But I just think that, to be honest, I don't know. I think when we're talking about reparations, a lot of times we're talking about patriarchy as well. Because a lot of times they're really only considering what they fear is black men. They don't so much fear black women, I think. Or maybe they do fear black women. But
I think so.
I think on some level they fear black women, but they don't. I don't think they think that black women have the impulse to harm them the same way they might consider a black man harming them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that, but I do think that they if as far as competition is concerned, I think that they would probably view black women as their most likely equal, like playing field to playing field.
Yeah, I think they see black women as potentially outsmarting and outperforming them.
Yeah, because it's like a woman who has the intellectual ability and the ability to persevere and all these other things. Kind of how versus white men, it was just given to them, right? And so there's a level of drive and finesse and I will have this in a black woman because you've always had to do that, right?
Yeah.
Versus a white man, it's usually not there. It's just like, oh, this is expected for me, right?
This should be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I just think that I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely for reparations. I do think you got to figure out how you're going to do it because you got plenty of white people who are going to be like, I'm half black and my mom's, and suddenly everybody going to be black now.
Right.
So when there's money on the line, but or they're just going to probably get more violent and reactionary, I think. But I'm for it, and honestly, I'm gonna claim dual citizenship. In California. But it's both. Run me 2 checks. Thanks. Clear off these student loans. Thanks. But
can you please hurry? Right? June is coming rapidly.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's kind of our thoughts on Black History Month coming up. We're glad we were able to have this talk with you. We hope it either enlightened you or helped you to kind of see some things differently about how we're viewing Black History Month. coming up, as well as like how we, navigate appreciating Black people, Black culture, Black businesses, Black artwork, Black, contribution to this nation. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say, Caitlin?
No, it was actually a good talk. I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know what I have to contribute, but here we are.
Yeah. And we're glad we got to highlight Biddy Mason. I think that's great that she was honestly kind of a boss bee back in 1890. Like,
She's a boss A, B,
right?
B,
City girls up. You think she was a city girl? Nah. Well, she was. No. She was in downtown LA, so I don't know.
But she was back then. Maybe it was not what it is now. She was very poised. She was about her business. Period.
You're right. She was not thoughting and bopping. No, exactly. JT and Carisha.
Exactly.
What song did they even sing? What is a city girl song?
And that is the end of the episode.
It's time for the twerkulator. That's it. That's it. Okay.
Somebody else to do it.
Well, we're gonna appreciate Black culture, Black contribution, which in some way, to some people, twerking is
let's
a
do
major.
Luther Vandross. Let's do Anita Baker. Let's do Ledisi. Let's do India Ivory. Let's do quality content, not in and out. Okay.
To some people, Black twerking is a contribution to Black culture. Depends on how you ask.
Now, I'm not saying I don't love a good twerk, because your girls like to twerk too. But come on now, I'm in the face.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to you guys later. Happy Black History Appreciation Month.
And happy February. We're finally in February.
Yes.
So we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye, everybody.